Thank you. Okay, when I was around 11 years old, my sister was given a brand new bike by my parents. Now, I wanted a bike, and I didn't actually think it was fair that she had one and I didn't, and I couldn't see why I couldn't have one either. In fact, I thought I ought to have had it, because I was the sporty one. I was the one who liked going fast, and she liked needlework, so that just didn't seem to be fair. So one day I saw this shiny bike just there, and I didn't think there was anyone about, so I borrowed it without asking. Now, I'd have to say I wasn't very tall. I'm still not very tall, but I was pretty small then. So I could reach the pedals, but I couldn't reach the floor. Now, I sort of rode down the road, and then I checked that my mother hadn't come out and yelled at me, or my sister hadn't come chasing me. But no, nobody had noticed. So I went on a quiet road, and then I went on a main road. Now, inexplicably, the bell fell off into the main road, and I just drove into the main road. Now, there was a screech of car wheels, and the car must have stopped about there, about a foot away. And then I could hear all these cars squealing because they like herringbone, swerving, missing each other all the way up the road. Now, I was just standing there, trembling. I couldn't speak. I thought I was going to pass out. And I remember it, this guy in a suit came and picked up the bell and gave it to me. And I couldn't even say thank you. I was, just totally shocked. Now, I went home. I guess I walked most of it. I think I did cycle the last bit because I thought I needed to do that. And I didn't tell anyone. Nobody had seen I'd gone. And actually, I'm not sure I ever told my parents or my sister. I may have done. But I know maybe weeks, months later, I reflected on that. And I thought the fact is, actually, my parents knew I wasn't savvy enough to be on the roads and I wasn't tall enough. And actually, them saying no was fair and actually was very loving because they just knew it wasn't the right time. Now, subsequently, I did get a bike, but I realised I could have been really hurt then, or could have actually been killed. So that was a lesson I learnt. Growing up in my 20s, I became a Christian when I was 19, but in my teens and 20s I had a number of funerals I attended. My first was a 9-year-old, then a 15-year-old school friend. I also had to go to a couple of friends who committed suicide and a car accident, and I had other sort of issues at that time. And also I was the boss of a very busy physio department. And maybe that all contributed in some way, and me going into a severe depression in my 30s. Now, the fact is, I would say that was the worst times, but also the best of times. Now, the worst was because the depression was so terrifying. It was very black. I was suicidal. I didn't know quite what was happening to me. And I remember praying to God, anything but this. And it was as if God was silent. But that time it made me address issues that I should have done. I sort of made me grieve for friends and situations, made me forgive, that time to forgive people, to let go of things that I should have done probably a long time ago. But the other thing I'd say, I used to climb, well I still do, mountains and things, and friends used to say I was like a mountain goat, that I could just run and jump over rocks, and I didn't seem to have much fear. But I suddenly realised in this depression, there was a day where I thought, I don't know if I can get out of bed today. Now, it was actually at that point, it was as if God said, and it doesn't matter. Now, I remember thinking in my head, well, it might not matter to you, God, but it does to me. But actually, sort of from that time, I really learnt that I was loved by God. Not because of anything I'd done, but simply because of his love and goodness. So that was another great lesson to learn. Now, when I eventually recovered from that, I think I was quite a different person, and I really do see that time as a blessing. However hard it was, it actually was for my good. Now, and I guess I thought after that, I'd get married, have children, but that hasn't been my path. I haven't necessarily found that easy. And even now sometimes I think there is a disappointment. I prayed for that, but that hasn't, and so God hasn't answered perhaps in the way I expected. Well, not. So, does that mean God doesn't care, he doesn't love? Well, certainly not. And, I've learnt that, in fact, that verse that says, we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Now, it doesn't say some things, it says all things, and that's true for all believers. So, and God is love, God is good. He can't actually be anything else. He's like that all the time. So there are things that I have learned, and I've had opportunities to do other things, not least travel different parts of the world, see the wonderful beauty of the world and the diversity of cultures, and that God is Lord of all. Now, sometimes actually, when I've helped do a puzzle with somebody, I've thought, actually, that's what our life's like. Each of those pieces is really uniform in many ways, but actually it's totally unique. There's not another piece or another place that one piece can fit. And that's like us all. And if I sort of think, if a piece of the puzzle could lift its head and look round, it actually can't see very much of the picture. And that's too like us. We probably don't understand why we go through things. But actually, God sees the whole picture. And he's put us where he wants us to be. He's made us who he wants us to be. And he gives each of us our own path that we're to walk. And it's for us to trust him. And certainly, over the years, that's something that I've learned, that actually I can trust God with everything. Now, lastly, I have no idea what the next 20 or 30 years will involve. I don't know whether I will see 20 or 30 years. I don't know if I'll get old and struggle just getting out of a chair because of arthritis. I don't know if I will terrify the people of Caterham with a motorised scooter, which if I had my way it would be with a Rolls-Royce engine, but probably not. Or whether I might wander around the streets of Caterham thinking, now I know I used to live here, but I have no idea where my house is anymore. Actually, I have no idea. But I do know I can trust God in all these things. He's promised that he has said to me, he's chosen me, he's called me by name. I'm one of his children, and he has looked after me up to now and loved me, and I have no reason not to trust and trust him for the future, and that ultimately, actually, he would take me to be with him in glory, which is a wonderful place. And certainly, I hope that's true for all of you. So, to God be the glory.